So welcome to our time together, our meditation time, our time of just grounding into this present moment, of really giving ourselves a chance to pause from the activity, the movement, the busyness, both around us and inside our heads. And so I encourage you just to get still wherever you are. Allow yourself to arrive. You can close your eyes. You can find you a spot to focus your gaze on. Just allow the body to really settle. And then allow the breath to just really usher you into this beautiful present moment. Just one slow breath at a time. Just breathing in and breathing out. And in and out. And just notice as you breathe how things begin to incrementally shift. Little by little, the body begins to find this natural rhythm. Because what we know about ourselves is that rhythm of the world, that busyness, that constant movement, that's not the natural rhythm of who we are. So as you ground here into this spot that you've chosen, into this moment, you're actually returning to your natural state. So just feel that. Gentle, steady, compassionate way of being. And we've come to this point in our meditation time with the Yoga Sutras where there's this beautiful thread that's going to bring us back to the very beginning, which I think is just amazing because this word sutra, we know that it has inspired the word suture in English, which we know threads things together. And so I think when Patanjali gave us these words of wisdom, he was creating these threads that each statement he gave us, each teaching was never meant to be in isolation. Sometimes he would repeat himself again and again and again, but other times, like today, he's actually going back to one of the first things that he taught us. Because here we are in chapter 3, verse 23, when he talks about this idea of Maitri. Maitri. Maitri is this word, and its simplest, most lovely translation means friendliness. And he spends this whole time in this one sutra talking about the impact of friendliness. And not friendliness in some of our conventional ways of thinking it, of what it looks like and feels like, but friendliness from this deep wellspring within you of compassion and love for others that you just can't help but be friendly. You can't help but smile at that passerby in the grocery store. You can't help but offer a hand to someone who needs it. You can't help but going next to someone who looks maybe a little bit lonely and just sitting there, being with them. Friendliness. But this is not the first time that he's told us about friendliness. He introduced it way back in chapter 1, verse 33. And what we know about that chapter is it's the chapter of practice. And so he was telling us, I need you to practice friendliness. As much as you practice moving your body, sitting in meditation, breathing with intention, friendliness needs to be part of your practice, meaning that you are doing it on purpose. And here we are in this third chapter, the chapter of accomplishments, and it's this beautiful thread between the two where he says, as you've practiced it, now it has an impact in your life. Because that same friendliness that you radiate out to others, now, as it comes back into you, it allows your mind to become still. It allows the confusion to become less. It allows the clarity to increase. And just like that rhythm we started with, it allows you to return to your natural state, your natural way of being. We were truly created with this wellspring of compassion and goodness within us. And so it is natural that we would want to give friendliness to every person that we interact with, that comes across our path, that we don't even know. And then in this chapter 3, he says, and now that it's part of your practice, steadiness comes. So just think about what a beautiful turn of events that is. We don't act friendly to get something out of it, but he's telling us, as you practice this way of being, your steadiness of mind and spirit increases. So this thing that seems so elusive to us, this thing that we've wanted so very much, one of the keys is we just have to practice friendliness. Maitri. And so what I would encourage us to do right here in this moment is, in your mind's eye, in your imagination, see what that looks like for you. This has nothing to do with your extroverted or introverted personality. It has nothing to do with your gifts or talents. It has to do with that heartbeat, that soul deep within you. What does friendliness look like in your everyday life? How do you show it? How do people feel it when you're in their presence? So let's just pause for these next few breaths and just picture it. Friendliness. Maitri. And then I would ask us to picture in our mind's eye, what does it look like to have friendliness shown to us? How would you like to receive that from someone? What could someone do tomorrow when they see you, when they think of you, when they pass by you? What could someone do that would make you feel friendliness just radiating from them? What would that look like? What would it sound like? What would the actions be? And as you see that in your mind's eye, I encourage us, do that. If we can picture receiving friendliness from someone else, can't we then in turn see ourselves doing that very same thing for others? And I know that there are times that our logical, rational mind begins to chime in with the, yeah, but. So I'm going to go out tomorrow and I'm going to be friendly. Yeah, but what if people aren't friendly back? Yeah, but does it also include those people who are not very kind? Yeah, but I don't know that I can do that with strangers. So what I would encourage us to do is, as we sit in the quiet in just a moment, see if you can separate from the logical, rational parts of your mind that bring in those yeah buts, and just see friendliness. I've witnessed it. I've seen people exchanging it. I've seen people exhibiting it. And it truly does something to my heart to witness it happening. And so just imagine, what if we, those of us in this space right here hearing these words, what if we could be a catalyst for that? Whether they are strangers or unkind, whether they give us attention or eye contact, let's let those things not matter. and truly make the friendliness, like what Patanjali has taught us in the sutras, first our practice, and then let it feel this impact in our lives, bringing us steadiness, bringing us clarity, bringing us back to our natural state, our way of being. And so let's just sit with this visual in our head of what does that look like? How will you be friendly, authentically, from a place in your heart, friendly tomorrow? What will that look like? And as we sit in the quiet for these next couple of minutes, just notice if that nagging voice starts to come in, and if so, just let it go. Don't give it the attention, and eventually it gets a little quieter. Maitri, friendliness. How will we cultivate it tomorrow? And as you continue to breathe and continue to imagine and visualize what this could look like, I want to close our practice with sharing with you just what I noticed in a few of the translations of this particular aphorism, this particular statement in the sutras. I always try to go to lots of different sources, lots of different translations and commentaries to make sure that my understanding is not just one person's view, but it's reading everyone's view and finding my own personal meaning in these words that were whispered so long ago. And I found it really interesting in several commentaries, several translations of this chapter 3, verse 23, that it used the word Maitri, and then it said friendliness, and then it had a comma and the word ETC, period, etc. And I thought that was a little bit odd. I couldn't think of a Sanskrit way that someone would have read that and thought, etc. And then as I read more, I realized what they were saying is this Maitri, this friendliness, etc., etc., etc. There is no end to it. Because once you cultivate the practice of it, once you begin to let it just have an impact in your own life, you feel such steadiness in your mind, in your thoughts, in your spirit, that it just keeps replicating again and again and again. It becomes part of your natural way of being. Maybe you've lost it a little bit along the way. We settle into patterns of habits and likes and dislikes. But this idea of friendliness, it's who we are. And this interconnection of humanity, that's where we should be practicing it. And so tomorrow as we go out, Maitri, etc., etc., what will that look like for you? And so it goes on and on and on. That my friends, is the way we begin to change this world. Namaste.